Hey folks, Fernando doing another video for the Modern Survivalist. In this quick video, I'd like to address some questions regarding knife laws and what's legal or not in your country. Of course, it cannot cover every single knife law depending on each country and even each state or city, but I can give you a couple pointers as to make smart decisions. First of all, of course, know your local laws. That should go without saying, but knowing your local laws will allow you to be covered by it in case you have any problems with any sort of a police officer that's discussing the legality of what you have or what you don't have, that sort of thing. So knowing your local laws is key. So now, having said that, there's different things that you should keep in mind in spite of knowing your local laws, such as how is it that those are going to be interpreted. So first of all, understand that there's countries in which you have, in states, of course, in which you have more restrictions than others, and it's going to be depending on, is there an actual law that is, making it illegal for you to have certain things. The country in which I lived that was by far the most restrictive was United Kingdom, in which they have very specific knife laws by which anything that is a fixed blade or a blade that locks, say something like this, if it's a blade that locks, no matter how long the blade is, no matter how long the fixed blade is, it's illegal for you to carry that unless you have a very, very good solid reason for it, such as, you're selling knives and you're transporting those knives, or you are a butcher and or a chef and you move around with your knives. You have to be very careful with that because it's legally forbidden for you to have a fixed blade or a locking blade, and there's no way around that. And if your excuse is really not good enough, that's going to be 3 years in jail, no excuse. So when you have such tough laws, you have to be extremely, extremely careful. The only thing that according to UK law you can have with you without that specific good reason is a blade that is non-locking, all right? It should not lock, no locking knives under 3-inch length of blade. So something like this would fall specifically into what is known as a UK legal knife. So this is this is a German army knife made by Victorinox. The blade length is just under 3 inches, and this does not lock. Now, while I was living there, the knife that I carried, like my EDC, was this knife, and some smartass always comments, "Oh, that's a locking blade." No, it's not. It is exactly like a locking blade because Boker has the exact same model that locks, but this is a specific model that does not lock. As you see, this would be the bar that drops on the locking model. This model does not lock. It's just has a detent and just stops the blade right there, but it does not lock. It's an interesting blade because it's specifically made so as to navigate those very tough restrictions, and you have like this index so as to get a good choke on the blade like that. And even though it doesn't lock, you kind of, if you hold it firmly, you're a lot safer than without that sort of shape there, a proper guard. But it is, according to the law, it's under 3 inches and a non-locking blade. Then you have, and be very careful with this interpretation of good enough reason. Oh, I'm going to be opening a few boxes at my friend's house that just moved. That's likely not going to be cutting it. If you're going to be going and doing certain specific outdoors activities, like if you're going to be hunting, fishing, or going on a trail, and you have a big backpack with camping gear, and you have maybe a mortar knife or whatever, then that's likely to be good enough. But be very careful because the law says specifically that you'll end up 3 years in jail if you break that law. Now, in other countries, you have like different restrictions as of, you are not allowed to have weapons, blunt weapons, or impact weapons in general, but there's nothing specific as of you're gonna be ending up so many years in jail. When that is open to interpretation, or when that is open to the interpretation of the officer, depending on the moment. For example, there's places in which you are allowed to have like a pocket knife, and it doesn't say if it's locking or non-locking, so you can have either one. When the law is not restrictive, you have the freedom that which is not made, that's not illegal, is by defect legal. So if it's not saying specifically lock or non-lock, and it just says under 4 inches, then you can have an under 4-inch folding knife. It can have like a locking system or a clip, because it's not specified by that by that law. So when you have that sort of thing, and you have interpretation of the police officer, say you can have like a blade that is under 4 inches unless you are in certain public places like pubs, like clubs, or at certain hours of the night, parties, concerts, that sort of thing. The law enforcement officer has the right to make a certain interpretation of, okay, that's being taken away from you because you shouldn't be having this when drunk in a bar, and the law gives him that flexibility. That's very different from having such a restrictive law where no matter what, you are ending up in jail for having that. So keep that in mind, and keep in mind that in general, cops are reasonable people. I've had this happen for many times in different countries, even, where if, for example, I could have a folding knife of certain length, and I had that, and I opened it in front of a police officer for opening a package or whatever. Or yes, of course, when you're shooting and you actually have guns, no one seems to care a whole lot what kind of knife you have. But many times I would just open the knife and nothing, either no comment or hey, that's a cool knife, and just show it to the guy, and that's it. But there's gonna be a lot of in some of these cases where there's flexibility for the officers to make his own interpretation of you having that being okay or not. It's going to be depending on your attitude, what you're doing. If you're sneaking around at 2 a.m. and it seems like you're trying to break into houses and you have a sharpened screwdriver, then likely you're in trouble, and likely you're either going to be ending up in jail or that's going to be taken away from you. If you're just a normal, average Joe, law-abiding citizen, there's a good chance that most officers will not have a problem with that. But keep in mind this: is there specific legislations that will land you in jail or land you a big fine for having something you're not supposed to? Or is there more flexibility? Is there more flexibility for the officer to make his own mind of what you can or you cannot have? All right. Some people are, oh, that's banned. Some people think that everything is banned, and some officers may indeed be assholes and use that flexibility to just the worst possible interpretation of that rule. So keep that in mind as well. Is that something you're willing to risk? Is that something that you're just taking too much of a risk, depending on that situation that you're involved in, what you're doing that day, and you're taking a knife with you? I'm in a bar drunk and I have a knife that an officer may be allowed to take away from me. All of that comes into play. When it's not banned, or when you don't have any specific regulations or laws or that specifically ban any blade length, you can just have any blade length, whatever that is. You can carry something like this, and in fact, this is what I carried for a long time in Buenos Aires. And there's certain regulations as of not having weapons, right? But since it's not specifically restricted, it's open to interpretation of the officer, and that's where you, being a law-abiding citizen and not causing trouble, will be quite beneficial. Then you have some other things you should know of in terms of types of knives. If it's an automatic knife, in many parts of many countries, many states, many cities, even specifically in certain cities, it may be banned for you to have an automatic knife. I think that in LA or New York, automatic knives, probably, just check the laws, but I'm pretty sure automatic knives are likely to be banned. There's a difference between an automatic knife, which is a blade that is in tension, and a mechanism, a button releases that blade and it snaps open, and an assisted knife. An assisted open knife is something in which you have to apply force of your own, and then a little spring finishes opening it for you. It just assists on the opening. The legal difference is huge. One may be completely illegal, the other one may be completely legal. The assisted knife in many parts of the world is completely legal. The automatic knife may not be. Then you have, for example, in Germany, I think, and don't quote me on this, but in Germany you are likely to have this thing about you cannot have a knife that opens one-handed, right? So yeah, if anything that opens one-handed, careful with that. I've had customs in UK take away knives that I ordered online because they said they were gravity knives, and they had this exact same model that it just didn't make it through. I got a little paper that the knife I had bought was illegal, even though I know it wasn't, because even though it's not legal for you to carry it, it is legal for you to own and have it in your home, which is what I was doing when I was buying it. But this was just downright theft. But you have to fight that in court. Maybe you don't want to make that huge mess. And sometimes, if you're a complete asshole, like doing like this, it's a gravity knife. Yeah, you're holding it by the blade. That's not the way you're supposed to open the knife either way. But the kind of thing that an asshole may end up doing and giving you a trouble for that. So know your local laws. Know that if there's any flexibility for interpretation, it's going to be mattering a lot what you're doing, the kind of attitude you have. Hey, fuck you, pig, I have whatever knife I want. Yeah, that's not likely to end up well. If you're respectful, if they see that you're like a clean-cut type of guy, most officers will not give you much of a problem for that. Guys, I hope this answered a few questions, helped you out making a few smart choices. Take care. Remember that you have my books available in Amazon, Street Survival Skills, which I definitely recommend you getting, and the Modern Survival Manual, Surviving the Economic Collapse, also relevant to these current times. See you in our next video. Have an awesome day.